Good morning, everybody. It's Bruce Singer. Thank you for joining us today. Today's version of the 9 a.m. spot, I am pleased to have our guest, Dr. Deborah Nixon of Mandrake, who's an expert in the area of human capital, leadership, and really helping people during their transition or helping people even before they get transition. What are things to do? So I'm really pleased. Excited about today's seminar. So Deborah, perhaps you can just tell us more about yourself and then we'll get into, in a moment, I just want to talk about a couple of things in one moment. Again, thank you for attending. What we're going to do is we're going to have a chat, myself and Deborah. Then after that, in about maybe 5-6 minutes, we're going to open it up to invite attendees to join the panel, which is optional. And all you need to do is either say yes in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll promote you to the panel on a video if you like. And you will remain muted unless you want to speak. And so we'll be a Q&A session. And we're hoping this could be a little more interesting, a little more interactive, and hopefully have some fun today and make it a little, like I said, more virtually interesting. So Deborah, perhaps you can talk about yourself and then we'll get into it. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, good. So great to be here. So I've had a really long business career. I started in the marketing area and moved into executive search in the late 80s, really loved it, and did that for a number of years, and then left to do some graduate work and, ended up pursuing my PhD in the area of trust leadership. And it's such an important thing, and so many people are dealing with trust, especially now during COVID. I mean, it's really become a prevalent issue. So I ran a consulting business for 25 years in kind of HR, organizational development, did a lot of senior level executive coaching, served as an advisor to C-suite. And through that process, really spent a lot of time talking to people about their career development, either within their organization or their personal careers. And COVID's presented some very interesting challenges to executives right now. We all know about the economic fallout, and there's just so much change that's ahead. And I've been fielding a lot of calls and having lots and lots of conversations with very senior executives around their career, how to prep, how to manage through COVID, how to anticipate what might come out the other end. I run 5 HR and cross-functional executives and transition groups, so spending many hours a week talking to senior executives about how they're managing through COVID, really being also reached by a lot of people who are working right now, wondering about what their futures hold. So it's a challenging time for everybody.
Okay, cool. That's good. So so we're going to talk, what are some of the key things you can suggest? For example, what can an executive do to look, because in COVID-19, due to the situation, it's going to be a much more competitive. Okay, there's going to be more people available, less positions. So what are some of the common, I guess, do's and don'ts, if you want to call it? Let's keep it simple. Do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts, really great.
What's some of the don'ts we can talk about? Yeah.
So the do's and don'ts are opposite side of the same coin, right?
Yep.
People who know me are sick of hearing me talk about networking and leveraging LinkedIn. I feel like a broken record. I've been saying this for 25 years, pre-LinkedIn, after LinkedIn, it's the same. The mistake, and this is what I'm sure you see too, Bruce, somebody is in transition, they've been restructured out. You ask them, how's your network? Oh, it's really lousy. Really? Why is your network so lousy? Well, I had a job, I was doing fine, I was busy, networking takes so much time. And the reality is, I tell people networking does not take as much time as you think, because it depends on what we call networking. So the mistake that most executives make is they don't network, then they're in transition, they network like crazy, they get a job, and they don't network anymore. And the reality is, as we know, and you know this, for the last 10, 15 years, I mean, it's not unusual right now to see very senior executives be transitioned out 1, 2, 3 times. So for you to think you can grab a job and then relax on the networking is foolish, because you may get transitioned out and then you have to gear it all up again. So The do is networking. The don't is don't just network when you're looking for a job, because when you go back to your network a couple of years later, who you've dropped, and say, hello, it's me again, people are not that interested in necessarily helping you because you haven't bothered with them. Networking, as you know, is a relationship of reciprocity. So I tell people, when you network, it can't just be about you. And so if you network and then drop people, the reciprocal piece of that is gone, because you haven't bothered to stay in touch. You basically indicated to them, I was only interested in networking because you could help me, but now that I've got something, I'm not interested in you anymore. And so that's not the right message to send. So, you're a great networker. I'm a great networker. I've been networking for 30 years. I stay in touch with everybody in my network. And we both have big networks because of what we do. Yep. I don't stay in touch with everybody every month, but people hear from me throughout the year. And it isn't always a coffee or a meeting. Sometimes it's just an email saying, hey, I was thinking about you. How you doing? So I think that is the major do. The other thing is, in a time like this, and I know that most people are very aware of this, is not to assume, that you're bulletproof, right? None of us are bulletproof. I think most executives understand that, even before COVID, in this global marketplace, right? I've got lots of executives who've been restructured out because the corporate office has shifted either to the US or Europe. And so, they leave sometimes a smaller staff up here. So you always have to be ready. You always have to have your resume up to date.
That's right, because the key is to network when you perceive you don't need to network.
Totally.
Your key, you want to keep it going, right? So when you talk about networking, because networking is a very broad thing, okay? Like some people networking. What is a simple networking step that a habit? Is it a daily habit? Like, what is a habit someone can do? Is it getting on LinkedIn and maybe sending out a post maybe every other day? Does that help? Or just like a message, just once a day? Like there's got to be some daily routines. And the whole idea is to get into those daily routines, because it's so easy to say, I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week, right? The successful people that you've seen that are in transition, that have moved quickly, what are the habits that they actually do, like specific actions?
Yeah, so for sure, you should be sending out a couple of emails a day, every day. I send out emails every single day. I tell people it's not a big deal. Sometimes I'm watching Netflix, right? And somebody will pop into my head and I'll just dash off an email. It could be 1 or 2 lines. It's simply to get back on the top of their mental agenda. Oh, I heard from Deborah. Hey, that's nice. So I'll say, hey, I was thinking, how are things? We haven't talked for a while. Would love to catch up. That's it. Sometimes they may not respond to that for 2 or 3 weeks. It doesn't really matter. The fact is, I've popped into their inbox. I'm genuinely interested in what's happening to them, and they can respond to me whenever they want. The other thing is, when you talk about LinkedIn, that's less networking and more personal branding, right? So that's the other piece most people don't do a lot of. Like, they really don't value and leverage the power of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, I don't know if you've noticed, Bruce, but LinkedIn has really come alive during COVID. And it's so great. And the conversations really changed. So before, LinkedIn was primarily about people putting up pictures. Oh, look how great I am. Look, I did this, I did that. Look, here's, my video about me. Now LinkedIn is really all about people reaching out to help one another, and I really love that. So in the old days of LinkedIn, because I was an early LinkedIn user, LinkedIn was really about the business community, with the word community really in there. And then in the last few years, LinkedIn has been all about self-promotion, and so it hasn't been interesting. Now with COVID, the communities come back, and this is a perfect time. People should be leveraging. And if you're not used to LinkedIn, you only have to just start by liking stuff. By liking something, you end up on that poster's feed, and people will say, oh, I wonder who that person is. Even better, put a comment. And then people will say, oh, who is that? That was an interesting comment. I wonder who that person is. There's a lot you can do.
Also, if I can add something, what I've noticed, again, to me, one of the tricks is when you're currently in a situation, like if you're a C-suite executive, if you're a CFO and you reach out to someone, most likely they're going to connect with you. Okay. When they see you're unemployed, then there's a different perception. Okay. So the whole idea is to grow that network. And even like, did you see like in the old days, LinkedIn maybe was like a glorified resume database? It's not. Like you said, it's so much more. It's way beyond more. Anyways, what we're going to do is I see some things coming through in the chat. At this point, let's open it up.
Okay.
So to people to be interactive. And so again, a couple of things. If you click on the wave, the let you in. There's a let you in, or just send it in. And we're going to open it up to people right now. So please send in your questions.
Yeah.
Please open it up to the video. We could open up to video. So all you got to do is put the option that you want to come on video and put you on video.
Yeah. Okay. But I'd love to have some questions, because this is an opportunity, you know, to really like ask your questions. I mean, you know, I've got 40 people in my executives in transition group, and you know, and I've got 5 groups, and the questions are the same, and people want to, you know about the market and what are we seeing out there. So if you have questions like that, are there any questions coming through like that?
Not yet. No, not yet. Not yet. Here's one question.
Yeah.
There's one question from someone. He asks here, what should be the mindset and behavioral modeling of leaders towards the work culture ecosystem organization and their teams to the people reporting to them in this new normal or this current pandemic work situation?
Yeah, so great question, big question. The one thing with the groups that I'm coaching, and as you know, Bruce, I run twice a week big meetings for HR leadership so that they can advise their leaders. And the important thing through COVID is the communication piece. I mean, you cannot stress that enough. So I'm virtually onboarding some new leaders into new organizations. And what I've said to them is, the most important thing, typically in the first 90 days, you know, you would want to push for outcomes, early wins. But right now, the most important thing is to build relationship. It's tougher to build and maintain relationships and build trust virtually. And so trust is built in the little things that people do, right? It's not your big actions. It's your little consistent actions. So as leaders right now, it is all about staying in touch with your reports, staying in touch with your teams, being sincere and authentic about their well-being. And it's also about listening with empathy. So I run a couple of leaning groups, very senior women leaders for a client of mine. And the one thing that even the most senior women leaders are talking about is, you know, we're in COVID, I'm trying to be, you know, a teacher, I'm working from home, I've got all these distractions, getting food is really difficult, it's a whole big production. The economy sucks, right? In the meantime, my deliverables and my deadlines haven't changed at all. And so I think as leaders, it's really, really important for you to remember that to set the same expectations as you have for your people pre-COVID is likely incredibly unrealistic, that you really need to be open to hearing from your employees and your staff and your reports. What are they struggling with and how can you help? So people are really, really looking for that kind of support. So if you can create a forum where people feel that they can come to you, I think that that's really critical right now. I don't know if that answers your question or if you have a follow-up, but please, you know, follow up with that. Is it Suramathi who asked that?
Yeah, Deborah, this is Saramati, and thanks for answering that. That was a wonderful answer. Yeah, that's one thing that I was expecting, being empathetic listener and, you know, getting to know your reports, your team better than before, and them and building trust with those small things. But I have a follow-up question with this. If the leader is already established in the organization and they know their team members already, they've met them in person, and they've been working along with them for quite some time. It would be happier during this transition period with the new normal to maintain that relationship. But unfortunately, if there is a leader who's getting onboarded into a new role in this situation, where he or she hasn't met their team members, hasn't met the reports, haven't created that personal connection with the people whom they are working with, in that case, are there any specific qualities or specific characteristic traits that they need to exhibit or they need to do in order to build that collaboration and trust among their team members, or even with colleagues with whom they would be working virtually on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's great. And do you think you could put people on video? I'm finding it difficult to just look at a black. I'd like to see Sarah Matthew if I'm going to talk with you. But if you don't mind, Sarah Matthew, I'd love to see you. I find that easier to connect. So do you know some of the issues around building relationship and trust? It's more difficult when you don't know your team, for sure. And so I've been virtually onboarding a group of executives in different organizations. Again, the messaging is the same, right? It is, we talk a lot about active listening, and I know that you've all probably, what active listening is. Oh, good, that's a lot better. You know what active listening is, but active listening is really, really hard to do. And in a virtual environment, it's super important because it creates that space where people can feel that they can speak with you. So in a virtual environment, you've got to touch base more frequently. They should, some people are doing really long meetings in in a virtual environment. It's very important that it's frequency and it's short, but that's true if you're an established leader as well. So what's interesting is I have one client who is onboarding, and she's a very kind of left brain, task oriented. She's got a role that's very intellectual. And on her third week, I said to her, so, how many, did you meet your team? She said, yeah, I met them, a week ago. I said, oh no, this is not the real environment. Meeting your team once a week is just not sufficient. You've got to be checking in with your team, especially if you're a new leader, probably every other day for short periods of time. And that's really the key thing. But you should be doing it as well if you're a leader who knows the team. It's interesting, there's a lot of unspokenness that goes on right now, and you as the leader have to draw that out. People are very hesitant to say to you that they're having trouble managing. People are not going to readily say that because they're going to think that you think they're weak or incapable. So it's important for you to really give them permission to tell you what's going on so you can help them.
That helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I think you have there was another question, Bruce?
Not right, not immediately, but I see a lot of faces on video, which is great. Did anybody like to ask a question to Dr.
Dr. Nixon, I did have a question.
Yes.
My question was, and sort of obviously relating to this, is that you're talking about communication and how important it is, and if I'm a senior manager, CEO, CFO, executive, and I haven't in the past developed those relationships and that communication. At this point now, we're doing it virtually. What's the, what are some of the tools that I can actually utilize?
Yeah.
To open that up?
Yeah. So much of it's Jeff, is going to be driven by how comfortable you feel, right? And so really as the leader, you're going to be the one who's driving and setting the tone. So, often what will be easier for you, and it may take you a couple of times, right? So because people aren't used to you interacting in a certain way with them. You'll do better on a one-on-one than you would in a group setting, probably. Do you have an example that you want to share?
Well, I was just as you're talking about it, what comes to mind obviously is you're saying the first couple of times, don't be afraid. Actually, as I fumble and stumble my way through it, is really what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah, and also, I would be super honest and authentic, Jeff. So you can say to whoever this is, listen, I know that this is an unusual time. It's not easy for any of us to be communicating virtually, but here's my intention. I want to take advantage of this time to change the way that I've been communicating. And it's not going to be easy for me. So I hope you're going to give me lots of latitude and give me lots of feedback. And I'm going to screw it up along the way. But I've made a commitment to myself that I'm going to take advantage. And this is going to be a learning and growth opportunity for me. So I hope you'll help me. I mean, it'll take a certain degree of vulnerability on your part to say that. But you're going to find that your team is going to respond, I hope, really well to that. They might be cynical at first, because if you've never done it, they're going to go, oh God, I wonder what he's doing, right? But if you keep up with it and you keep on trying, you'll find that your authenticity will be rewarded. People appreciate it. And what you'll find is when you give it to others first, I always say in trust building, someone has to go first. So someone has to give the trust first. So why not let it be you? You're the leader. You're in the position of power. You should give that trust first and keep on giving it. Even if it's not coming back right away, it'll take some time, but it will come back to you. The other thing that's important about building relationship and building trust is to be super consistent. So if you say you're going to do something, keep on doing it, even if what's coming back to you isn't what you expect or want. It's like building any relationship, right? Think about raising your kids, right? Like they can be so difficult, but you have to keep showing up, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly when I promised my wife I'm taking the garbage out after dinner, I have to make sure that I follow up with it. She's not asking me again at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. So absolutely.
Exactly. And even if you're shifting a personal relationship to go from not talking about stuff to talking about it, the person may not be as open at the beginning because you've set up a relationship that is a certain way. Now, one of the parties has changed it and the other person's like, I don't know what this is all about. Keep showing up in little bits. Keep doing it. And eventually they'll believe you. And eventually they'll go, oh, wow, this is real. He means it. Okay, okay, I can trust this a little bit. So manage your own expectations too. So you're feeling like, wow, I've done this amazing thing. And nobody's really appreciating it.
Deborah, I have a question.
They're questioning, yeah.
I have a question to ask you. You mentioned the point called vulnerability, okay? Which that's a challenge for a lot of people. And especially with technology, if you say the wrong thing, it goes viral. Okay? Okay? Look, I had someone tell me last week my picture was god-awful. I posted a video and I had to take it, So you're a leader, you're a CEO, you're a high-level person in a position. Is how do you look? I'm challenged with it sometimes. Where do you push the envelope? Because hey, this thing can go viral, and all of a sudden you say, geez, and I think one of the issues could be is
you own it
with technology. That's a big stretch for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So can we expand on that? Like, how do you coach somebody in that realm?
Yeah, Claudia, do you have something you want to add?
Oh, I love this. Yes. So I was going to say, you have to own it. You got to be authentic. If it's coming from the heart and you own it, then if it goes viral, you meant it. You meant it. You believe it.
I agree with that. And that is true. So it'll go viral, but what will go viral? Let's go back, put Jeff on the spot. What will go viral?
Right.
What might go viral is Jeff saying, hey, COVID has given me time, as by the way, it's been a common conversation. So many people right now are rethinking their priorities, what matters to them. I've had many, many conversations with people because what I've said is, all those distractions we had that contain our anxieties, they're all gone. Yeah. So we've all had to face our own selves. And as a result of facing our own selves, we're all having these conversations of, well, what is my leadership? What do I really want? What do I want for my career? What do I want going forward? So Jeff, let's say, what is the worst thing you'd say? You'd say to your team, I've really this COVID time has given me a time to reflect on my leadership. And I really feel like COVID's a time for growth. It can be a time for us to be depressed and fearful, or it can be a time of growth. I've decided I'm going to take a positive spin on this. I really would like to change how I lead. And as part of that, I'd like to have more open conversations with you. I'm not going to do a great job at the beginning. This is new for me. And I'm hoping that together we can work on this and that you'll be honest with me, I'll be honest with you. That's as viral and as awful as it's going to get. That's pretty good. Being vulnerable doesn't mean, it doesn't mean exposing, deep, dark secrets. It means putting your true self out there, knowing that people will see who you really are, and knowing that they may evaluate you. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Because as you said, Claudia, you're gonna own it. So Bruce, I don't think we're talking about, spilling your guts and talking about your deep, dark secrets from childhood. That's not what we mean by being vulnerable, right? But even being vulnerable to say, I may not have all the answers. I may not be able to get this right. That's tough for leaders to say to their team. But you know what? Your team's going to appreciate it.
But that's what's actually needed today, because look, we're in a new world here. Every day's changing. Things are flipping. Things are moving, a lot of moving parts today. A lot of the old rules are out the door because maybe there are no rules anymore. There are no behaviors. So, anyways. So,
the other piece around that, I know a lot of leaders are struggling with is, a lot of your employees are concerned about what their futures are, right? Am I going to have a job? Are there going to be layoffs? And you don't always have the answers. And really part of being authentic is to say, listen, and empathetic, I understand how you feel. I'm sure you're worried. I'm worried too. None of us really know what the outcome is. And I promise you, and this has to be true, that as I know, you'll know. And the thing that I can encourage you as employees to do is ask me, come to me. If you have a concern about the future or your job, I will tell you, if I can tell you, if I even have the answer. You may not get an answer that you like because I may not know. But I think that if you make that statement and give them permission to come to you, they'll come. A lot of times they don't come to you because they're not sure what to expect. It's too risky for them. So you have to give them permission to be honest with you.
One thing, you look at a C-suite executive who's in let's say C-suite executives in transition. Can we expand on the impact of technology? Is that a challenge how challenging is that for a lot of people? The impact of technology, and not just is there more to it? I just want to expand on that. Your thoughts.
So what do you mean the impact of technology? Like what part of it?
Like, for example, like when I'll give an example, talk about myself, I'm showing my vulnerability. I'll give my example. When I first started 2 months ago, I was started thinking, am I a bit of a dinosaur? Like I'm starting to learn LinkedIn and it actually can get overwhelming. LinkedIn and all these different mediums and where to go and what to do and what to post. Like where do you start? Like I read some books. Like I found it overwhelming.
Yeah. So
is there a roadmap that someone could take? Because it's easy to say something, get on LinkedIn, but is there more to it? What are you seeing? What are you seeing out there in terms of?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, and I see a couple of my my HR people here, so I'm really glad to see you. So they'll know that one of the things that we talked about, we had a whole session, a little session on how to do a Zoom meeting, because it's not so straightforward. I mean, people are dropping out, your connection's not good. Some people look awful on Zoom because their lighting's bad. So also, what's the etiquette about Zoom? How should you be dressed? So yes, there's a lot of learning that people have to do with technology. Having meetings via Zoom is new. All I say to people, is just you have to try it and you have to ask for feedback. So when we were on this Zoom meeting, we had about 40 people. And we did like a little Zoom tutorial. And so there was one person on there and I said to her, listen, we're all kind of looking at you like from the bottom up. We're looking at you from the chin up. So, we were trying to help her adjust. But, I say to people, try things out, get somebody who experiment with them. Don't just turn on a camera and show up. You still want to treat this as a professional environment. On the other hand, what's really been great about Zoom is the fact that people are at home. And as a recruiter, I've been loving it because in some cases, I can actually get a sense of the person, right? Like Janice's, I'm looking like she's got all these fabulous books and she's obviously a reader and a writer, and her books are all orderly. Some of them are this way. So it tells me that this is a person who loves her books, is really into it, and isn't worried about matching all the books, that she uses those books. So, I love that part of this, that you get this kind of information about people. So while you want to be professional, don't be antiseptic. Don't be afraid to have your kid wander behind you. It's fine. I had my cat walk across. What's nice about that? It actually breaks the ice. It humanizes the whole environment. And what I say to people during this time is, look, at the end of the day, if you're looking for a job, you're trying to make a connection, look, even when it's not COVID, when you're having a meeting, we're human to human at the end of the day. We like to do business with people we like to do business with. And so all of us are in sales in one sense or another, right? Either you're interviewing for a role, you're selling yourself, you're selling an idea within your organization, you're presenting a plan. At the end of the day, we're people talking to people. And if we could strip away all of that professional speak and just kind of go down to another level of human to human, you can still present all of your intellectual ideas, but you can do it in a way that reaches in, so that you welcome them into what you're doing, so that they feel free to ask questions, to give you feedback, to have a conversation with you, as opposed to this more sterile, this is the proper question, and you ask that question, and I give you this proper answer. And so that's when you end up with the meeting after the meeting, right? Where nobody wanted to say anything. So then you all say what you're supposed to say, but you really say what you mean after. So you can use technology right now to do that. You should use COVID as your excuse of trying to change things. LinkedIn, that's a whole, listen, we could do a whole hour just on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really, really important. And every executive, even if you're busy, should leverage LinkedIn. You should be building your LinkedIn presence. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you never know when you're going to be in transition. Every executive in my group did not expect to be in transition. I mean, I think people assume these days that all of us will end up in transition sometime in our career, but you never know when it's going to come. And so you don't want to be scrambling with, 300 LinkedIn contacts and a dead profile. You want to be on LinkedIn at least a few times a week, commenting, posting. You should really be engaged with LinkedIn.
That's a good point. So Deborah, if you just to summarize, we are ending shortly.
Yeah.
Just to summarize, I always like to end the meeting saying, like, zero in one or two really, that's an executive, the big takeaway. I know we talked about a lot of things, but if you had to say the one big takeaway that someone can do, what's the big step or the big takeaway? That is it LinkedIn? What is it, like, zeroing in, the big takeaway?
Well, based because of what your theme was, I won't go into the building culture or leadership or things, but based on your theme, everybody who knows me knows my big takeaway is always the networking. Like, if you haven't started networking, start networking. Networking doesn't have to mean you spend an hour with people. Networking be as simple as I mentioned early on, hey, I was just thinking about you, thought I'd drop you an email. How's your family doing? Whenever you have a chance, would be great to connect. That's networking. It doesn't have to be this. I think people avoid networking because they think it's this really big thing, and how do I approach them, and what do I say? Just be yourself. And if, I send lots of emails where, it's 10 o'clock at night and I'll just say, hey, you popped into my head. That'll be my subject line. You popped into my head. And I'll say, listen, I was just watching Netflix and I thought of you, and I thought I'd say, how are you? It's been a few months. We haven't heard from each other. You know what? 100% of the time, that person replies to me. Wouldn't you reply to an email where you received that someone said, I was thinking about you? You'd reply. So networking, but you don't wait until you're in transition to build a network.
You know what?
Start doing it now.
If I can add to that for a second, even like on my own end, I received some emails from people, a little note on LinkedIn saying, how are you? How's your family during COVID-19? Just something that simple. And you know what? I remember though, and that resonates. And you remember stuff like the little things, So we're coming to an end.
Okay.
Talk about networking. If you want to network with myself or Deborah, we're on LinkedIn. Okay. If you're not connected to me already, or you're okay, Deborah, just find us. We're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And we'll gladly network with you. Gladly network.
Definitely. It was really great meeting all of you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you for having us.
Claudia.
Thank you so much. And we wish everybody a wonderful day. And thank you, Deborah, so much.
Thanks. It was great. It was fun.
Thank you, everybody that participated in your questions. It's much appreciated. And have a wonderful